Hey there, I'm a glue stick, so I have one job. I glue kid stuff. So sorry for being jealous of Geico, who does a ton more, like give you 24/7 access to thousands of licensed agents. And Geico has been around for over 75 years and has a 97% customer satisfaction rating. While I've just got mediocre adhesive skills, Geico also has an award-winning mobile app. Uh-oh, arts and crafts time. No eating the glue stick, Miss Lydia!
Geico. Expect great savings and a whole lot more.
This is the Best of Golic and Wingo podcast.
Welcome in. Good Thursday morning, everybody. Hope your day is off to a good start. Glad you are beginning your day with us. Golic and Wingo on ESPN Radio and ESPN2, presented by Progressive Insurance. All phone guests will join us via the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Mike, we're inching closer and closer to what many people consider the best 2 days of the entire NFL regular and postseason, the divisional playoffs.
Yeah, and the only reason we say that over the AFC and NFC championship is that's only 2 games in one day.
Correct. That's the best day. This is the best weekend.
This is the best weekend, without question. Because the wild card, you never know what kind of game you get. You get some great games, you get some blowouts, but yes, this is the one right here. So really looking forward to it. And I know as we've been talking about it, I think the Tennessee Titan fans are the ones feeling most left out of all the talk as far as the possibility, since that's kind of a double-digit
underdog point.
Thank you very much. Underdog.
I don't know. I want to help my friend.
I know.
I want to help my friend.
Double-digit underdog in this one, so they're getting the least amount of talk. But there are more than a few games that I'm really, really looking forward to. Some of the great matchups that we're going to be breaking down.
It should be a lot of fun. Plus, today marks the halfway point of the NBA's regular season by games played. So we'll have a deep dive in what we saw in the first half of the NBA season and maybe what we expect to play out in the second half of the NBA season. The guest that will be helping us to do all of this throughout the day, Steven Jackson, our ESPN NBA analyst, will join us in the 7 o'clock hour. Our Commander-in-Chief, Hall of Famer Bill Poley, NFL front office insider, will talk to him about potential job openings left in the NFL and some of the moves that have been made and whether or not guys like Nick Saban should entertain ideas of going to the NFL. Stu Gotts will join us in the 8 o'clock hour to do Stu Gotts Things. Stephen A. Smith will be here at 9 o'clock. And Sean Payton, head coach of the Saints, will join us at 9:30 as they get set for a very, very tough test up there in Minnesota.
That is secondary to some of the things going on in his life right now, some of the things that have been named after him that are way more important than football games.
And we will get into all of that.
Yeah, I'll just say it. He has a beer named after him.
That's solid.
That to me is...
That would be the pinnacle for you?
I would probably just retire. So, okay, I'm done. All good.
You've had a sandwich named after you. I thought that would be more down up your alley there.
Yeah. Sandwich and a beer.
Well, he's thinking, maybe.
You know how they do...
Way to stick to your convictions,
big guy. You know at the restaurants, when you can order that and then they pair it, they have the pairing. What's the best pairing? Yes. I need the sandwich named after me paired with the beer named after me. That's it.
That would be good.
That would be it.
That would be...
Right? I can ride off into the sunset then.
Yeah, you could. And or if you have too many of the beers, have someone else ride off for you.
There you go. I can Uber off into the sunset.
Just play it safe. That's all I'm saying. No, whatever you do, just play it safe. Speaking of not playing it safe, Conor McGregor, you saw this story? This is great.
This is great.
He rented out an entire amusement park for friends and families one night.
Yeah, he did. It's called Funderland.
Isn't that the most Irish English thing ever?
Funderland.
Funderland.
Funderland land. Funderland in Dublin. And this is what you do when you make yourself $100 million for a fight, while all the MMA people are waiting to see if and when he's going to come back and fight. He's out there renting out an entire amusement park for family and friends for a night because he can.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. Why? Because I can.
Well, because I can. That's exactly right.
And he wanted to repay some people that have been in his corner.
Very cool. So they went to Funderland.
That's exactly. So we started thinking about this.
Yes, we did.
And what would you rent out if you had the means and you wanted to show some support and thanks for people that have been in your corner,
or for whatever reason you wanted to rent this particular thing out? What venue? What would you rent out for the evening?
Yeah, let's say you don't have 14 suitcases with $1 million like George Clooney did at that
exactly.
one dinner.
Yes.
So let's assume you don't want to do that. You don't want to give away $14 million like Clooney did to pay back some friends that helped him out when he was starting out. By the way, the taxes were already paid on
by
all
George
that, which
as
is
well.
The most ridiculous thing. Yep. So if you could rent out one place, would it be an amusement park? Would it be a ballpark? Would it be a golf course somewhere? Would it be somewhere you could just have the run of the place?
Yeah.
We're putting that up on our Twitter page at Golic and Wingo. put in your suggestions. We'll get those throughout the year. Do you have an idea right away where you would go?
Right off the top of my head, I'm a movie guy. How about like for the Star Wars opening or Monster, you just rent out the theater. And then you don't have to worry about lines, anything. You just rent out the theater. It's all you. Bring in, as many family and friends you want, or rent it out for yourself.
Yeah.
Whatever. You can have as many, obviously, that fit in there, but just rent out on a huge movie weekend. Hey, you know what? Everybody, you go to your theater. This one's mine.
Taken.
And my invites only.
Taken.
Yeah.
But when you said by yourself, I don't know why this popped in my head. There was that story when Vince Young was a member of the Tennessee Titans and he was flying, I believe, a Southwest jet from Nashville to Houston. For whatever reason, he bought out the entire plane.
Bought every seat.
So it was just him on the plane.
Instead of going private in a private plane, he
that
bought
had
out.
to have been less, right?
To buy out every seat?
To buy out every seat on a Southwest jet just to go from Nashville to Houston. That I've always wondered what the impetus was.
I don't know. I remember that scratching my head a lot in that story. But you know what? You know why he did it?
Because he could.
There you go.
He had the funds.
So now we're giving you all the ability to say you can.
Yeah.
You can rent out any venue you want for any reason you want. What would it be? Put it up at Golick and Wingo, and we'll have some fun with that throughout the day.
I am really curious to see what the responses are on that, because there are a couple options that are going through my mind. I'm trying to figure out which one I would do. And we'll get into those a little bit later. So, again, put those up on our Twitter page, Golick and Wingo, and we'll read those throughout the show. But let's begin, Mike, as we normally do with...
It's time for Off the Top.
Whether you like it or not, it's just beginning.
With Golick and Wingo.
Well, let's start in the NBA, and here's where you know it's not your night. When you're the second fastest player ever in NBA history to 20,000 points, and you are not the headline, because Lou Williams scored a career-high 50 points to help the Clippers beat the Warriors for the first time since Christmas Day 2014.
Yeah, Kevin Durant needed 25 points. He ended up with 40. So he becomes the second youngest, as Trey mentioned, to get to the 20,000 points. LeBron was the youngest. Durant now second youngest and gets outscored by Lou Williams, who took 16 three-pointers last night. Lou Williams went 8 of 16 from three-point land, took 27 shots overall to get to his 50 points. I remember Lou Williams. Lou Williams was a leading scorer for the Lakers last year, and then they traded him away because they wanted to stop winning.
Yeah.
So they traded him to Houston. He's now with the Clippers and puts up 50 there. So congrats to him, and they beat Golden State. But overall, congrats to Kevin Durant for now, as we mentioned, being the second youngest player to 20,000 points. You know what's interesting in that list? So here are the 5 guys who did it before they turned 30 years old. LeBron James, and this is by age, youngest to oldest. LeBron James, Kevin Durant, Kobe Bryant, Wilt Chamberlain, Michael Jordan.
It's a really good list.
The amazing thing is, let's do it in how many seasons did it take him? LeBron 10, Durant 11, Kobe 12, Michael Jordan, who's 5th on this, 9. Wilt Chamberlain is 4th on this list, 7. Yeah. 7 seasons.
Well, when you drop 100 in a game,
when you're averaging 50.
When you drop 100 in Hershey, Pennsylvania,
he's
in
just
one
like
game.
separate, like in should have a separate book
on many
on
levels.
A lot of things.
On many levels, Wilt stands alone. Let's be clear about that. By the way, just a little more on Lou Williams. He's 31 years old. Remember, he came straight out of high school.
Yep.
In Georgia to the NBA. He's basically been predominantly been a sixth man, but he started last night. He's averaging a career-high 23 points a game, so good for Lou Williams. But we still have confidence in the Warriors to go further this year than the Clippers.
I think so.
Brought to you by National Mortgage Lender Quicken Loans. Apply simply, understand fully, mortgage confidentially, or confidently in English. We continue.
Off the top.
The Bulls topped the Knicks in double overtime Wednesday at Madison Square Garden thanks to rookie Lauri Markkanen's career-high 33 points.
Yep, he's a 5th rookie in NBA history with 30 points, 10 rebounds, and at least 5 three-pointers in a game. The others, Jamal Mashburn, Jason Kidd, Paul Pierce, and Steph Curry. So that's nice grouping right there. He's the first rookie player on any team, including the Knicks, to produce at least 30 points and 10 rebounds in a game at Madison Square Garden since Billy Owens put up 30 and 10 for the Warriors at the world's most famous arena. This is Markkanen with the Bulls doing this. So 1992, Michael Jordan, of course, in his debut had over 30, which of course he does, and in his last game at Madison Square, he did it as well. But he's again Michael Jordan. So Markkanen, big game for the Bulls as they beat the Knicks in double overtime.
Bulls are 3-0, by the way, against the Knicks this season, and Markkanen, those 8 3-pointers. How about that?
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
So tied for the most in the game by a 7-footer with Dirk Nowitzki. We continue.
Off the top.
Well, just hours after Texas announced sophomore guard Andrew Jones, its second leading scorer, had been diagnosed with leukemia, the Longhorns upset number 16 TCU in double overtime, snapping a 12-game losing streak against ranked AP opponents.
Yeah, obviously your thoughts and prayers out for him and his family. Leading scorer, he'd hurt his wrist and sidelined him for a bunch of games in December. When he returned, he complained of being tired, and he hardly played, missed a game last weekend at Baylor while undergoing tests and now going through the treatment here. So that's obviously the main thought there is for him. Certainly a good win for Texas over number 16 TCU, but it almost has to start and stop with your thoughts for Andrew Jones.
No question. Yeah. Look, the win for the team was great. The long-term win for Andrew Jones is what we're all hoping for there. And again, we send out our best here from Golick and Wingo and everybody at ESPN to Andrew Jones as he begins this battle.
Off the top.
And we go to the NFL. Norv Turner finalizing a deal to be the Panthers' offensive coordinator, according to ESPN's David Newton. He writes for the NFL Nation and covers the Panthers for us. Of course, Turner is a former head coach, but probably is best known for his glory days as an offensive coordinator.
Yeah, so this gets interesting for this hire and for the Turner family.
Yes,
so
please. This is good. Please explain.
Let's follow this one. So, again, this is Mike Shula, the O coordinator, and the quarterbacks coach, Ken Dorsey, both were fired from Carolina, so they had the openings there. So Norv is going to take over as the offensive coordinator. Norv's son, Scott. Now, Norv, the relationship with Norv and Ron Rivera is when Norv was a head coach in San Diego, Rivera was the D coordinator for him for 3 years there. So now he's going to be the O coordinator for Rivera. Turner's son, Scott, who the first 2 years Rivera was with, follow me here. The first 2 years Rivera was with Carolina, Norv's son Scott was a quality control person with Ron. Then he left to be the quarterback coach in college at Minnesota, and then most recently he's been at Michigan helping out with the quarterback. So now Norv's son Scott will join his father and he'll be the quarterback coach for the Carolina Panthers.
So we got two Turners.
So we have two Turners, but we have more.
Wait, there's more?
Norv's brother Ron is already on the staff in Carolina.
So we got Ron, Norv, and Scott.
He's an offensive consultant.
Okay.
And Norv's nephew, Cameron, is an assistant quarterback coach for Carolina right now.
So when Norv gets there, we've got Norv, his brother, his son, and his nephew. So, ladies and gentlemen, you're Carolina Turners.
We got a lot of Turners, don't we?
So let's see what other Turners could join.
Okay.
What other Turners could join the staff? Tina Turner?
Tina Turner.
There's Kathleen Turner.
Oh, there
actress,
you go.
Yeah. How about Sophie Turner, Sansa Stark?
Oh boy.
They could probably, she could probably get some things in line there.
I would say so.
Then this teams for sale. Ted Turner. Ted Turner could swoop in, get something done. Maybe they'll come back and get Michael the Burner Turner, who finished up his season, his career with the Atlanta Falcons a few years ago. I'm running out of famous Turners. There's actress Bree Turner. Trey Turner.
Trey Turner, right?
Yeah, Trey Turner. How about Evan Turner?
I'm sure there's more out there that we could possibly think of, but we know where the next Turner family reunion, they could just have it right there at the facility.
Well, they'd rent out a facility for all the Turners.
There you go.
See, there they go.
Probably get a good price.
They probably go to the Charlotte Motor Speedway.
There you go.
Right down there. Or the NASCAR Hall of Fame. Yep. They get everybody there right there in Charlotte.
Half the family's already there.
Bulldog Turner, although he's not with us
anymore.
And
a lot of people are wanting Norv Turner. He's 65 years old, the younger, the players. What's the connection there? Well, I know that we know the connection between Norv and Rivera, but also Norv Turner in developing quarterbacks through the years. How about these names? Troy Aikman?
Yep.
Phillip Rivers?
Yep.
Drew Brees?
Yep.
So you got Cam Newton, he's 28 years old, coming off a not very good year, and a couple of years ago was the MVP of the league. So can Norv kind of fine-tune what Cam can do?
Oh, also Debbie Turner, former Miss America, who I worked with in St. Louis. So there you go. All the Turners. We're getting all the Turners to Carolina. We'll get them all in, and then they'll go to their place and they'll figure it all out. The thing about Norv, though, as we finish up off the top here, he's the classic example to me of what you are and sometimes what you're not. I mean, he had some success as a head coach, no question about it, but he is an aces offensive coordinator. Yeah, one of the best.
And that's what happens if you're a really good offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, you get a shot at being a head coach, and some are just better at coordinators. Now, I was a head coach at Oakland, Washington, and San Diego, but some just can do it better as offensive coordinators. His last stint he was with the Minnesota Vikings before he was relieved of his duties there, and has been out of football since.
Yeah, and he has done a great job. And when this sort of came out after we were off the air yesterday, people are like, well, what's he going to do for Cam Newton? I said, well, the first thing he's going to do, the guy that should be happiest is Greg Olsen.
Yes.
Because everywhere that Norv has gone, he has made sure that tight end is a priority in that
And they
offense.
got a pretty good tight end in Greg Olsen. Getting up there in age, coming off some injury, but still a productive tight end.
And I think they'll find a lot of ways to use Christian McCaffrey and get him more involved in the offense in 2018, which McCaffrey would love. They took a top 10, 8th overall pick, I think, on McCaffrey, and I think they're going to try and find more ways to use him. Speaking of coaching in the NFL, a lot of chatter continues about Alabama head coach Nick Saban and whether or not he would try a second run in the NFL after he's won 6 national championships in college, 5 in Alabama in the last 9 years. Former Cardinals head coach Bruce Arians said the job he covets would be the Giants' job. He had 2 seasons in Miami. It was good the first year, then it sort of fell apart that second year, but a lot of that was predicated on they didn't pass a physical on Drew Brees when he was coming from San Diego.
Could have been really different
with that shoulder injury, and if they had passed him, it might have gone a little better in Miami than it did. And I'm not anything against Dante Culpepper, but obviously Drew Brees is going to walk into the Hall of Fame when he's done playing. So Bruce Arians says he covets the job. The Giants' job is open, but our friends at PTI don't think the Giants should be interested in Saban. Listen.
I'm going to flip this for a second and say, if I'm the New York Giants, would I look lovingly at Nick Saban for 30 seconds?
No.
And the answer is hell to the no.
No.
I'm not looking at Nick Saban.
No.
Nick Saban is maybe the best ever at what he does,
right.
but what he does and what the New York Giants do ain't the same thing.
This is an important concept. I would be less surprised if Nick Saban took the job than if the Giants offered him the job.
I don't understand it.
Yeah, look, we love those guys, and they're great. I think we both disagree here, and I'll start, and I'll let you finish, because to me, that's fine if that's their opinion, but basically at the end of the day, what you're saying there is you don't believe that a second time around a head coach can be a success in the NFL. And if that's the case, then you need to be introduced to someone named Bill Belichick.
Right.
Bill Belichick, it all fell apart in Cleveland. Now, some of that was because the team was moving. I understand that. And that's the staff on that team in Cleveland included Bill Belichick, Jim Schwartz, Nick Saban, Eric Mangini, Ozzie Newsome was in the front office. Phil Savage was in that front office. Thomas Dimitroff was an intern who's now the general manager of the Atlanta Falcons.
Right.
That staff was loaded. And if you don't understand that Nick Saban cut his teeth in the NFL as a coach. See, you're seeing him for what he is now.
Right. And
you're not seeing for what he has been his entire career.
All these guys have a long history of getting to where they got. I mean, Dick Vermeil coming back, and look what he did as well. So I didn't understand that one. I'm not sure why the Giants. I read yesterday Landon Collins, who played for Nick Saban in Alabama, said he didn't really think Bill Belichick should become the coach with the Giants because he didn't like the process and the strictness of it, to which we kind of shook our head. Yeah, you just don't like win. I mean, how do you not like winning?
Yeah, I don't quite understand
I didn't really understand that, and I honestly don't understand the PTI thought process either, of not wanting a guy who has spent time in the NFL, albeit as a head coach wasn't the most successful in the world. But, there's a list of those guys who still, in getting a second chance, have been able to do pretty well.
And who is he most associated with? Bill Belichick. I mean, Landon Collins made that statement because he believes Belichick and Saban
basically
are essentially the same guy.
He said, I've been through that process,
Look, I understand that there are a lot of things that go on with making that transition. Again, we have no idea if Saban would even entertain it.
I don't think either of us think he will.
Right.
But it's fun to talk about.
It is, especially when Bruce Arians says it's the job he covets. But to dismiss it out of hand, I don't understand that at all.
To say they would be more surprised if the Giants offered it to him rather than Saban take it. I don't get that one. I don't know why if Nick Saban made it be known to everybody, you know what? I want to coach again in the NFL. Yeah. Come on. Seriously?
Literally, there might be a few more openings in the NFL if that happened. Now, so that look, we understand, but at the end of the day, understand who he is, and understand what he has done and what he can do. And for a guy like Saban, who's accomplished basically everything he could possibly want to accomplish, if that's his motivation, and we don't know,
right?
The idea of maybe going back would be very appealing, especially if Bruce Arians is right. What he said is that's the job that he covets.
Right.
That's not a soft term. That's a solid term. So we'll see what happens going there.
Golic and Wingo, the podcast.
Mm-hmm. Trey Wingo and Mike Golic Sr. Golic and Wingo with you on a Thursday morning. Glad you're with us. We are presented by Progressive Insurance. All phone guests join us via the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. And we put it out there early, and the responses on Twitter have been pretty good, Mike. Conor McGregor rented out an entire amusement park called Funderland in Ireland just because he could for friends and family. So it got us to thinking, hey, if you had the means and the time, what would you do if you could just rent out one certain space just to have a great time and say thanks for everybody for helping me out?
I love these. Chris, I would rent out a Vegas casino during the PBR rodeo finals.
Oh, that's very specific.
Awesome. It is, but that's
very
great.
good.
That's exactly what we're looking for.
Perez, an entire cruise ship, and then open bar, 4 exclamation points.
Isn't an open bar anyway on a cruise ship when you take a cruise?
Most of the time, but it depends on the cruise. And
well, drinks, top shelf, all that. Who knows?
Exactly.
Yeah, there you go. Corey says, I'd rent out Epcot in Disney World. My friends and family can drink around the world without worrying about all the crowds and lines.
There you go.
Love that.
He went specific. Hampton just went Disneyland, the whole thing.
Yeah, the whole thing.
We're just taking the whole thing.
Lewis went specific as well. How about a gentleman's club for all my guy friends?
Okay.
Well, that's specific.
That is certainly something. Mm-hmm. How about Rick? I'd rent out Cameron Indoor when Duke played North Carolina to watch my Blue Devils.
Wow.
That's very good. Although that home court advantage, if there's just a few of you there, I don't think it'd feel the same.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Great bucket. Hey, very good.
I like Hank's. Hank says Dave & Buster's free play open bar.
I'm beginning to sense open bar as a theme.
Yeah, open
here.
Bar as a big-time theme.
Now, Adam went completely out of this world, literally. A private flight to space with my friends. Like SpaceX.
Yeah,
that?
sure.
Yeah. That's next level.
Wow, that would be something.
What would you do? Do you know?
I haven't. I'm trying to. The movie theater came to mind right away, but I almost feel I need to go bigger than that. Yeah. Like the most responses we're getting right now is a lot of your golf people.
That's exactly
Augusta.
right.
They would rent out Augusta.
Guess what? Augusta isn't being rented out.
Well, no, we're in a make believe world here. Though. That's what we are. We're in that whole world here on Golic and Wingo is make believe. So
that's a fair point.
Yeah, it's exactly right. So you can rent out anything, and that's kind of been the one right now. But I'm not sure yet. My immediate thought was, though, on those crowded weekends at the movie theaters for the monster opening nights, like the Star Wars openings of the world, is I'm renting a theater. I can walk straight to my theater. I don't have to deal with any of the lines of anything and just sit right down with the family and friends and watch. But I almost feel I need to go bigger than that.
Yeah, I think if I'm going to do that, you want to take like a jet somewhere and like land on an island and have like the whole thing. Like there's a Peter Island. I think that's Richard Branson's island. You know, I'm not sure if it's still up and running at the hurricane. But doing someplace where you could just have the entire run of the place where here's a resort, here's golf, do whatever you want. Top shelf all the way. That would be very fun.
Let your imagination run wild on this one. At Golic and Wingo, what venue would you rent out and why would you do that?
That's why we buy the Powerball tickets.
Exactly. That's exactly right.
Exactly right.
I mean, who isn't thinking of something like that?
Exactly go big or go home.
Yes.
But you're right. Mine would be down the golfing genre.
You know,
like
Conor
Pebble Beach,
I'm
Cypress
sure
Point.
So you would.
Like
that's what you would do. You would pick a thing. And speaking of, the lottery tickets, that's what Conor McGregor did. Went 10 rounds and got a lottery ticket.
He got a lottery. You know what? I would do that too.
Who wouldn't go 10 rounds and get a lottery ticket?
That's exactly right. So good for him. And keep those coming at Golic and Wingo. We'll continue reading those. But we played something on the intro to this segment.
Right.
And it was Jacksonville quarterback Blake Bortles. Now, obviously, Blake struggled mightily in that game against the Buffalo Bills that they won. I mean, technically, Blake Bortles is now 1-0 in the playoffs as a starting quarterback in the NFL.
Passed for 87 yards, rushed for 88 yards.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So the running was good. Yep. The passing was not so good. And obviously, that's been an issue with Blake throughout his career. There have been some really strong moments, and then it sort of seems to fall apart. So he was asked by one of the local media down there in Jacksonville what it would take to finally get people to sort of not pick on him. And here was his response.
How much more do you have to do to silence the haters?
Yeah, it'll probably never stop, man. There's people that think LeBron James sucks. So if that happens, I'm sure there'll be a lot of people that always think I suck.
So, listen, immediately out of that, the headline is, the clickbait is, Bortles is comparing himself to LeBron James.
Right.
And he was just making a point. I completely understood the point, and I hope everybody else did as well. He wasn't comparing himself to LeBron James, just a situation of basically his point is there's really not a whole lot I can do to have everybody all of a sudden love me. Same with LeBron James. LeBron James will go down as, in some people's mind, the greatest player, in a lot of people's minds, the second greatest player, but there's still those that will rip him for whatever. And that was Blake Bortles' point. Blake Bortles could take this team and win the Super Bowl and still not get the guy. People will say they won it in spite of him.
Yes.
I mean, and then that's basically what his point was. And you know what? I think he's right. There are very few athletes who get praised all the time and can turn things around like that to the form of praising, but he has not been good for a while. So in his mind, he's like, listen, I don't know if there's anything I can do that's going to change everybody's mind to all of a sudden say, oh yeah, he's the guy. He understands that's probably not going to happen.
Right. And I think his point is a very valid one. I just think it was handled poorly. I mean, not to sort of jump on this bandwagon, but I think that comment was a lot like of his pass attempts on Sunday. Just wasn't quite on point.
But you get it, though,
wasn't
right?
quite on point.
I mean,
yes, absolutely.
If you get by the headline, if you read that headline, Bortles compares himself to LeBron James, you're going, oh my God, are you kidding me? You have to dig and say he picked one of the most absurd situations of how could you say LeBron James stinks and Bortles is saying I basically am in a no-win situation. I'm never going to get everybody on my side.
You know what would have been a huge win for him if he just said, you know what, all I can do is go out there and play better.
Yeah.
That's it.
And that's what he has to deal with. Listen, I'll say again, for any coach or any player that says, I don't read anything, I don't hear anything, I don't know about anything while the season's going on, that's a bunch of bull.
Yes.
They hear, they see, they know. Whether someone tells them or it gets to them, they know. And especially in this day and age with social media. So that is the key here because Bortles is not going to get the benefit of the doubt from many people at all. So it's how does he handle it mentally? How is he, and all he cares about really is his teammates and how they are handling. You know, they're all supporting him, but I'm sure even there are teammates out there questioning just how far, if Blake Bortles had to pass a lot in a game, how far he could take them.
Well, you know, we had a couple of people in talking about that this week, and they said, yeah, you know, when you see that kind of game, you kind of give them the side glance. Well, Booger was like, you sort of give him the side eye, like, dude, what's going on there? And the thing that's frustrating for Blake and for people that watch this team is you've seen it. You've seen him put it all together. I mean, you go back this season, again, I don't mean to harp on this, but for 3 weeks, weeks 13, 14, and 15, he was money. It was the first time in his career that he'd had 3 straight games, multiple touchdowns, no interceptions. So you're thinking, it's clicking in. And he had the 2015 season was really good for Blake Bortles. But then he follows that up with the last 2 games of the regular season where he has 2 touchdown passes and 5 interceptions in 2 straight losses where they sort of limp into the postseason. So that's the problem here. You want to believe that the good will eventually take over with Blake because you've seen it, but then it sort of reverts itself, and you don't know where it's going to level off. Where the water levels off with Blake is still unknown.
Well, the thing about it is, I think for most people, they feel the water leveling off for him is not going to be enough.
Yeah.
It's not going to be good enough to take a team who has a wide open window right now of opportunity where they need to go. That's why, even though I know they picked up his 5th-year option, but boy, oh boy, that's got to be a serious question going into next year. Let's see how far they get this year in one of the great matchups this weekend of them going to Pittsburgh. Again, they beat Pittsburgh 30-9 earlier this year. There was news out of Pittsburgh, Antonio Brown, a full participant in practice, and supposedly looked like he had never been injured. So if that's the case, boy, what a feather in the cap for the Pittsburgh Steelers in getting between Roethlisberger and Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown, if they're all healthy, obviously meaning Antonio Brown here. Just how different that game could be. I don't think anybody expects Roethlisberger to throw 5 interceptions
with
again
no
like
touchdown passes. Yeah, I mean that's the thing. And then of course then you've had the emergence of Juju Smith-Schuster, who has been great down the stretch, and Martavis has come back from his sort of Mike Tomlin-induced, hibernation. So he's been good. But back to the Bortles thing real quickly. I mean, just going back and look at the numbers. In 2015, he threw for over 4,400 yards, had 35 touchdown passes. Now, again, he had 18 interceptions. I get that. And you thought, wow, it's clicking in for this guy. And then the last 2 years, he's completed about 60% of his passes, under 4,000 yards the last 2 years, went to 39.05 in 2016. 36-something in 2017, and the touchdown to interception ratio is much closer than it needs to be.
Yeah.
And you wonder, where was that 2015 guy, and why is he coming back down? It's a frustrating thing. It's a frustrating thing if you're a fan of the Jags, and we'll see what happens.
Golic and Wingo, the podcast.
What a day, what a show, what a time.
I tell you what, a great sports night last night. Yeah. No doubt about it.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Stephen A. Smith from First Take in the Stephen A. Smith Show, which can be heard nationally every weekday from 1 to 3 right here on ESPN Radio. As he always does, he's going to bring the Straight Talk.
Yes, he is.
Brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Best phones, best networks, no contracts. Stephen A., great to have you in.
Good
Thanks
to
for
see
being
you guys.
here.
How y'all doing?
We're doing good.
Well.
We're
a lot
doing
of bummed
good.
out people, we think, in California and that whole Coachella thing. Yeah.
Don't get me started.
Yeah.
We won't. Don't get me started.
We
will
seamlessly move on then.
Stanzik, what's that stupid word you use for
Nominally.
halfway? Nominal? This is a nominal point. Do you ever know? I don't know what that is. It's the halfway point of the NBA season.
Well, listen, you look at it and you just say to yourself, sometimes the All-Star game is 50 games in or whatever the case may be. I love watching this time of year because it's at this point where I get to look and really, really judge where you are and what you should be. Like, for example, right now, what's on my mind when I think about the NBA, everybody's thinking, you can think about Kevin Durant, you can think about a LeBron James or what's going on in Cleveland, Boston, or whatever the case may be. I'm looking at the Washington Wizards, a team that I believe has enough talent to make a lot of noise that has repeatedly disappointed me. Mm-hmm. And I watched them blow a game last night, and Bradley Beal in that last play where he thought his shot was going to get blocked, so he ends up trying to pass the ball in midair and passing it to himself. It's unbelievable some of the stuff that I have seen, but I watched that stuff, and Washington has disappointed me. Miami has lived up to my expectations because I labeled them before the season as my sleeper, and right now they are creeping up on everybody.
They really are. By the way, Washington is unbelievable unless you realize it's Washington. Then it becomes believable because those things just seem to happen time and time again. Okay, so as it sits right now, the Celtics are in the top spot in the East. The Raptors are second. The Cleveland Cavaliers are in the third spot. Mm-hmm. When you see this thing going forward, where do you see the biggest challenge to Cleveland? Is it Boston?
It is Boston, without question. It's Boston because Kyrie Irving is a superstar. There's no doubt about it. And Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, they are incredibly impressive. You got to remember, it's not just what they can do offensively. They can hit some three-point shots. They can take the ball to the hole and they can score. But they defend as well. And they're both young and they're long. It's not like they're old and short. You see what I'm saying? They can defend. They're not scared of anybody. It's one of the reasons why they give the Golden State Warriors a much tougher time than a lot of people will realize, because they have length at the wing positions, which enables them to go out and defend on the perimeter. And as a result, you've got to have an interior game in order to really, really mess with them. And you got to remember, in today's day and age, you've got a lot of teams looking for guys that can step away from the basket and make plays on the perimeter at the 4 and 5 spot. And if you're gonna rely on your inside game, but you don't have Shaquille O'Neal or Olajuwon or somebody like that, it's going to be tough for you. And that's why the Boston Celtics are a team to be reckoned with.
It is crazy. Hayward, when he comes back, he's 27, Kyrie 25, Brown 21, and Tatum 19. That kid, to you, is he the rookie of the year?
Yes.
Is he the best rookie out there?
For me, I love him and I love Donovan Mitchell, but I got to give Jason Tatum the edge right now because of the success that the Boston Celtics are having with Gordon Hayward going down. You got to remember, if Gordon Hayward were healthy, it would be Gordon Hayward with Jaylen Brown in the starting lineup. Jason Tatum would be coming off the bench. His minutes would be reduced. His shot opportunities would be reduced. As a result, his level of productivity wouldn't be what it is. The fact that Gordon Hayward went down elevated him to a high profile position before he may have even been ready, and he's lived up, if not exceeded, expectations.
But what I love when I watch the Celtics play is the way they play defense. I mean, they have time and time again had some of the best teams in the NBA and throttled them at what they do best. And if you're looking long term, especially in the postseason, that's the thing that pops to me.
Well, the thing that pops to me is the exceptional coaching of Brad Stevens. I mean, Brad Stevens is the best young coach in basketball. He's one of the best coaches in basketball right now. He's an absolutely sensational coach. There's no doubt about it. And the thing, when you look at Danny Ainge, who is clearly an elite executive. He has proven it the way that he has built this franchise. You look at guys like Marcus Smart and Terry Rozier. These are young miniature Rough Riders. They're very physical. They're relatively undersized in terms of height, but their girth, their mass, they're willing to go at it and be feisty and battle with you. And then you have the length of Tatum and Jaylen Brown. And then you have the exceptional play along with the experience and the unreal and surreal skills of Kyrie Irving. And that's what you have. You know, it's one of those situations where you look at Boston and you say to yourself, if Gordon Hayward had never gotten hurt, we might be looking at this team and saying they could beat Cleveland. We might be looking at them and saying that if Gordon Hayward had not gone.
What do you think of the whole Gordon Hayward thing? And now Danny Ainge, he's out of the boot. You know, Gordon Hayward's got the eye look at, and Brad Stevens is like, whoa, easy on this thing.
I went on First Take yesterday. I was there opening night in Cleveland. The injury took place under the basket. I was right at the baseline, and I saw it, and it was the most gruesome injury that I have seen in my career, in my 20-plus years of covering the NBA. And to me, it was so gruesome. I don't care what a doctor says. I don't care what a Danny Ainge says. I don't care. I know what I saw. Don't let that man come back this season. Make sure you do everything you can for him to be 100%. It was that gruesome of an injury. He doesn't even need to be thinking about coming back.
Just amazing, though, out of the boot, though, walking around doing it.
And that's fine.
It's incredible.
That's fine, but that's entirely different than running and jumping and cutting, and not to mention the contact that you're going to endure. Stay the hell away from the basketball court.
I would completely agree with that. As far as an individualistic thing going on, Kevin Durant scores 40 last night. Well, he was outdone by Lou Williams, who scores 50, but he becomes the second youngest to get to 20,000. LeBron's first. He bumps Kobe to third. Then you have Will Chamberlain, Michael Jordan. Will Chamberlain did it in 7 seasons, which is just ridiculous. And with the Kevin Durant, past the going to Golden State, leaving Oklahoma City and all that, winning a title, where is his ceiling as far when we start? Because again, he's a guy that goes into the all-time conversations as years go on, not just where the game is today.
I think that, me personally, I think that when all is said and done, Kevin Durant can end up top 5 all-time. I think that he could go down. I think he's the only legitimate threat to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's all-time scoring record. He's so efficient. Everybody looks at, the career 27 point per game, and, he's averaged 25 points per game or better for the last 9 or 10 years. We get all of that. He religiously shoots above 48, 49% from the field. The accuracy, the marksmanship, the fact that he does it. If somebody just unleashed him and said, Kevin Durant, go ahead and shoot 25, 26 times a game, what would he average then? He is just an elite scorer. And this notion that he's 6'9", he's not 6'9", he's about 6'11".
Yep.
He's about 6'11". That wingspan is about 7'6". Okay.
He is the definition of long.
This dude, absolutely true. And he's just a scoring machine, and he's so efficient. From the perimeter, from the free throw line, inside or out, it doesn't matter. When you have that level of efficiency, you just can't ignore the level of greatness that he puts on display on a night-in, night-out basis.
Stephen A. Smith with us here from First Take and his own Stephen A. Smith show on ESPN Radio, talking about the halfway point of the NBA's regular season. Now, you brought this up, and now I need to know the answer to this. You said Durant could be in your top 5. Who is Stephen A. Smith's top 5 in the NBA of all time? I'm really curious. I would love to know the answer to that.
For me, it's Michael Jordan. It's Magic Johnson. It's Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Is LeBron in there yet?
Tim Duncan and LeBron James.
That's pretty good.
That's
a pretty good 5.
Tim Duncan and LeBron James. Now, see, here's where it becomes a bit sacrilegious, because I'm never taking Michael Jordan out under any circumstances.
Right. I think most people would be on board with that.
But I might take out Magic.
Wow.
Magic is the greatest point guard that ever played the game. But let's be real about something. Magic Johnson was 6'9", and most opponents he went against, he towered over.
Right.
So as a result, that obviously facilitated a better, not to say that he couldn't pass because he's such a phenomenal passer and just a savant, a basketball mind, but in terms of his athletic ability, his gifts as a basketball player, it's really up here in his mind because he's so highly intelligent, and his passing ability, shooting, ball handling, defending. Magic Johnson's not on the level of the other guys that you would mention. Okay. He's not even on Kobe's level in that regard. And so when you look at the greatness of Kevin Durant, if Kevin Durant stays in Golden State, if Kevin Durant, let's say, wins 2 or 3 more titles, let's say Kevin Durant ends up capturing 5 titles in his career. When you look at him, how many guys with 6'11", 7'6" wingspan had the ball handling skills of a guard, could shoot from anywhere, inside or out. And, oh, by the way, has elevated himself to a big-time defender in the game of basketball. There are very, very few people. We used to look at Kevin Durant and say, Iceman, George Gervin. That's what he reminded you of. Well, George Gervin has even said he's better. You know, I mean, I'm not in that conversation. Kevin Durant is on that kind of level to the point where at some point in time, if you say he can't move Magic, it's because he's never been the leader that Magic Johnson was. Right. Galvanizing the troops. He's the orchestrator of Showtime, the architect of Showtime. Kevin Durant hasn't been that, but skill-wise, he's there.
I'm really interested in this, not to go away from where we were going, but from your list. So 2 things. Are you saying that Magic Johnson is the greatest Laker of all time? And then did Tim Duncan, in your mind, have a better career on the list than Kobe Bryant?
I think Tim Duncan is the greatest power forward of all time.
Yep.
It used to be, in my mind, believe it or not, it wasn't Karl Malone, it was Kevin McHale. Kevin McHale was, I don't know why people forget about Kevin McHale and how unstoppable he was in the post, 10 feet and in.
Never brought the ball down after Rebound. That ball just stayed up there the entire time.
You couldn't stop Kevin McHale. But I consider Tim Duncan to be the greatest power forward of all time. As I think about his career, if he had a better career than Kobe, it's primarily because Tim Duncan was in the same system, same coach, level of continuity, no drama, et cetera, whereas Kobe, you were with Shaq, then you were without Shaq. Phil Jackson was your coach, then he wasn't your coach, and then he came back to be your coach, and all of this stuff in between. So you could make the argument, it's debatable. As it pertains to the greatest Laker of all time, here's the only reason I give the edge to Magic. I give the edge to Magic because Magic was a leader. Yeah. Kobe became one. Magic walked in as one. From the start of his career, it was his show. And you had guys like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, James Worthy, and everybody else literally deferring to the Magic Man, with Pat Riley after Paul Westhead becoming the coach and saying, Showtime has arrived, take it away. Magic did all of that, which is why I give him the edge.
From the get-go, and of course, remember him playing center in Game 6 of the finals that year. Put up 40 points in that game.
I give 42.
Ridiculous.
It was 42, like 42 and 15. But the only reason why I don't bring that up as much as other people do, Magic was great and he was a rookie.
Yeah.
But it was Caldwell Jones that he was going up against. It wasn't like it was Moses Malone or somebody. It was Caldwell Jones who was playing center. Yeah. And oh, by the way, also Chocolate Thunder, God rest his soul, Daryl Dawkins, who was, he was a foul waiting to happen. Daryl Dawkins came off the bench and picked up 2 fouls within 2 minutes. That was the difference.
Those Sixer teams of the 80s are one of my favorite teams all time when you had Charles Barkley, not obviously for that series, but then you had Caldwell Jones, Bobby Jones, Mark Ivoroni, the Doctor. I love that team. Andrew Toney, one of the greatest shooters of all time, but I kept having those breaks on his feet.
Mo Cheeks.
Absolutely. Yep. I love that team. That's really an interesting list. By the way, real quickly, I once played golf with George Gervin. Has the biggest hand you'll ever see, and every time you'd step up with the ball, the young fella, show me what you got. Show me what you're working with. And I'm just trying to hold on to the club. Show me what you got. He kept telling me.
Greatest finger roll in history.
I could finger roll, as he used to say. Okay, we talked a lot about the Celtics. They're in London taking on the Sixers. Look, we were all in on Philadelphia and trusting the process. Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons. Okay, you were not. A lot of people were. Did we get to them too early? Did we push them up too high for what they've become?
No, Ben Simmons is a jump shot away from being the second coming of LeBron James. Ben Simmons is special. Listen, Joel Embiid is special, but ain't nobody Ben Simmons. This dude is 6'10" with those ball handling and passing skills and that basketball IQ. If this dude gets any kind of a jump shot, you know what? Here's the crazy part. If he got free throws, if he made free throws, this guy would average 25 a game. It's just that simple. Without the jump shot, just free throws. That's how good he is. When you look at it from that perspective, the fact that you got 2 cornerstones of your franchise, you got to remember, we're talking about the Sixers team and their number 1 overall pick, Markelle Fultz, hasn't even played yet. Right. And so when we look at it from that perspective, the sky's the limit for this team if Ben Simmons can get himself a jump shot. But I am not somebody who will ever support the process. They threw seasons, not games, seasons. It was an abomination what they did. It was a disgrace to the point where the commissioner himself had to get involved and ultimately talk to Sixers ownership which ultimately spearheaded the arrival of Jerry Colangelo and then ultimately Brian Colangelo, where you actually started winning games. It's not Sam Hinkie's fault, the former GM for the Sixers. He did what he was allowed to do.
Exactly
we're going to break it down. It's not his fault. I'm not blaming him. He created cap space. He got picks. I understand all of that. But the process, think about that. Who could not have succeeded with the process? So Trey Wingo, Mike Golick, you're not radio host. You're novice GMs. Here's your job. I need you to lose as much as you possibly can.
I can do that.
Okay, and just make sure
you're playing in my wheelhouse, Stephen A.
Just make sure you can accumulate some picks along the way, but don't bring veterans. Don't try to compete. Just go out there. And oh, by the way, don't worry about the public because I'm giving you the license to announce to the world. You're not trying to win.
Yeah.
You're not trying to win. For seasons. Who does that? Who gets away with that? There's something about I tell Mike Missinelli in Philadelphia and, reporters that come up to me. I remember Kerry Champion and David and everybody were talking to me. I said, look, I'm trying to be nice. But at some point, sometimes somebody go get cussed out. They keep bringing up the process to me because I worked in Philadelphia for 17 years. It is the most disgusting process that I have ever witnessed in my life where you tell a fan base in one of the top 5 markets in America, go ahead and lose on purpose for years. It's ridiculous.
And it's amazing, though, if they start winning, though, how quickly people will forget about it and they'll move on.
I was literally in Philadelphia. I asked them, I said, what happened to y'all? What happened to this city? This city that I loved and worked in for 17 years. Y'all just walking around. Y'all numb to all of this. They losing on purpose. They still taking your money. Are you crazy? That's how bad it got.
That's why they're fanatics. When a fan is short for fanatic. I want to get the one football in the form of this. Mm-hmm. Nick Saban, Bill Belichick. Either, neither, or both with a different team next year.
Neither. I think Bill Belichick stays in New England. I think Nick Saban stays in Alabama. I think they should. When you look at Nick Saban, from a temperamental perspective, stay where you are because dealing with grown men that got to pay mortgages, receiving their paychecks and what have you, you're going to have a difficult time because you're not going to have the level of control over grown men on a professional level that you can exercise over athletes. Not to mention the fact you got to remember you got a hard salary cap in the NFL essentially, and you can go out and you could recruit 30, 35 5-star players to come to Alabama. It don't work that way in the pros. And so when you look at it from that perspective, I think that the right thing for him to do would be to stay at Alabama. In the case of Bill Belichick, Robert Kraft's not letting him go.
Well, that's the thing. It's up to Robert Kraft. It's not up to Bill Belichick.
Listen, I know Robert Kraft very well. I've spoken to him on many occasions. He ain't letting Bill Belichick go. He's not letting him go.
Why would he?
And not only that, here's the deal. You're only talking about, if you really look at John Gruden's contract, 10 years, $100 million guaranteed. Well, that's $10 million. All right. I mean, incentives can throw it up to 120 from what I hear, but it's really $10 million. Right. Well, Bill Belichick's at 7.5. You can't throw an extra $3 million his way? I think you can. I think you can if you're the New England Patriots. And if that's all it takes to keep Bill Belichick, you give him the money he so richly deserves.
Well, you just start to wonder if egos get involved because you never would think when you're winning because Kobe and Shaq, how many could they have won if egos don't get involved? Well, yes. But do egos get involved enough to break it up?
Egos get involved on any level, but to a lesser degree in the NFL because it's so dicey and dangerous. See, with basketball, you look like you're Kobe. You literally believed I'm going to win a championship without Shaquille O'Neal. This is basketball. Give me a couple of players and I'm good. Mm-hmm. Football, there are so many other components that contribute to success. You can't take the risk of really disrupting what you've built because to feed your ego. That's not wise, and I don't think we would ever call Bill Belichick unwise.
Well, one last thing before we'll let you go on football here. You said the Raiders should expect a Super Bowl win
within
in the next
4 years.
Within 4 years.
$100 million? I'm sorry. Listen.
Oh, okay. I want to make sure you're saying that should be the expectation because of what they're. Okay, I want to make
right.
You're not predicting.
No.
I want to make sure we're getting that right.
I said it is. Listen, you signed for $100 million guaranteed, more than the highest guaranteed football player, more than any coach in the NFL. Listen, I love John Gruden. He did a great job for us. He's always been kind to me. I love the guy personally, and I know that he is a brilliant football mind. And Raider Nation, he's made for Raider Nation. He deserved the job. I wish him nothing but the best. But the man hasn't coached since 2008. The 6 years prior to that, where he coached the last 6 years in the NFL, his record was 45-51, 0-2 in the playoffs. And somehow, some way, it ain't about getting a job. You got $100 million. I'm sorry. You got Derek Carr as your quarterback, who's no scrub, who's in the midst of a $125 million contract. I'm sorry. I want to see a Super Bowl championship within the next 4 years. And I'm barring injuries. Injuries.
No, but you're right. I just wasn't sure how that point was phrased. Right. You're right. That should be the expectation.
Well, and the stats don't bear that out.
He's
a 12th coach going back to the same team a second time.
That's right.
And that second time around, the average is 3 years. The winning percentage is in the 30 or 40%. Right. I mean, it doesn't bode well. But when you get that kind of money, a deal we're all still looking for.
And let's be fair. If it were a player, we have expectations with the money.
Yep.
If it was, so if it were an executive, Phil Jackson comes into New York, he's getting $12 million a year, 6 times more than most executives that is, that's president of basketball operations in the NBA. And look how he went to bed. You're damn right there were expectations, and there should be. And for John Gruden, it should be no different. 4 years, Derek Carr, Amari Cooper, you've got complete control of the franchise because when you get a base $100 million, ain't nobody working. You ain't working for anybody. They're working for you.
That's exactly
okay?
Absolutely.
Get it done.
Stephen A., we appreciate it. We'll
Thanks,
look forward to
Steve.
you on First Take and also the Stephen A. Smith radio show 1 to 3 here on ESPN Radio. And by the way, you mentioned winning. No matter what, John's won.
Yeah,
John has won. The question to be, will the Raiders win?
I won't say that because he's highly competitive.
Yes, but
and he cares that much.
No question.
Once a month, it's like the rest of us. Yeah. Once you get the money and it's directly deposited, you ain't thinking about it because you know it's there.
Well, that's maybe for you. I'm thinking about it all the time. Stephen A., thanks very much.
Golic and Wingo, the podcast.
It was all sort of one big giant Jell-O mold.
It's very interesting where that went.
Sean Payton with us now this morning on Golic and Wingo. Sean, first of all, congratulations on everything being named after you, and also congratulations on the team's success. You go to Minnesota this weekend. You guys played week 1. How different, though, are both of these teams than the teams that met on that first Monday night game of the regular season?
Good morning, guys. Look, before we talk about how different they are, count me in on that early 80s Def Leppard, too.
There you go. Yeah. See? We love it. That's our wheelhouse.
I think there's a lot that's changed. I think from a schematic standpoint, they're a team and we're a team that have certain schemes that I think you see on tape. The rosters are a lot different. I would say more on their offense and a little bit more on our defense with injuries that have taken place and through the attrition of, a 16-week season in the postseason. We were talking about this the other day. If you looked at one team's 53 and then you looked at the 10 practice squad, it's amazing when you go through that timeline, guys that come off the roster that get added to the roster, practice squad. And so it seems like it's been a long time ago. It seems like almost a season ago, and yet they're playing outstanding football. They've really done a good job of finding their formula. It starts with their defense. They've been unbelievable in every statistic. Their first and third down, their first and second run and pass, overall scoring defense, total defense, you name it. And that's, Mike is an expert in that area, and he's done a great job. But overall, as a team, I think they found that complement offensively as well. And so you see a personality of a team, even though the schemes may be similar. You see the confidence grow, and I think in both cases, both teams are playing with a lot of confidence.
So along those lines, how do from week 1 the video of that game? How is it used this week in preparation, if at all?
Well, it's used as part of the cut-ups. And so when I ask in a cut-up, maybe in a meeting, hey, let's look at all the third down and 2 to 3s, we can get recent if we choose the last 6, or we can get seasonal. And when you get to the stage we're at now in the playoffs, these meetings are late, and we'll look at every third and 2 to 3 in the season. So it would be part of the cut-up. Now, the same would exist when you're looking at any field. If you're doing a search and you just want maybe like offenses, well, then your offense would show up. If you're doing a search and you want to look at, just your game, Atlanta, maybe. So it's however you search for it, but clearly it's a game we've looked at separately into itself, and then it's also part of what we're studying in these categories cut-up-wise.
Sean Payton with us, the Saints head coach, as they are in the playoffs, have won a playoff game already and heading up to Minnesota this week to take on a very tough Vikings team. Sean, you guys have missed the postseason the last 3 years. And then I think one of the things that really turned this season around for you was how well you guys did at the draft. And I'm just going to list the first 4 draft picks that the Saints had in 2017. Cornerback Marshawn Lattimore, Pro Bowler. Then they sneak it into the first round to get Ryan Ramczyk, the tackle, who has played every single offensive snap this year. Safety Marcus Williams starts 15 games. And then you get the home run waiting to happen on almost any play. The running back Alvin Kamara, Pro Bowler, 14 touchdowns. I call him, Sean, a cephalopod. I don't think he has a bone in his body. He's just so slippery. He seems to get across and get away from any clean hit that anybody ever gets on him. How important has that draft been to what you've been able to do this season?
Well, I think it was essential this offseason when we went through and identified, hey, here are the areas we need to improve, and we kind of targeted in free agency a few positions, and then targeted the priorities in the draft. And anytime we've had a decent draft here, generally they've been the right kind of makeup, toughness. They've been talented, but they've also had great football makeup, and that's really been, one of the things that I felt has to take place when we evaluate these players. We can't say they learn a little bit, or we think they can learn, or the learning's okay, but we have to know what's their football IQ like, what's their toughness like, and Lattimore, came to us a little bit in that draft. We weren't certain that he would be there at 11. Ramczyk, we were real strong on. We felt Marcus Williams, was in our top 28. We ended up taking him in the beginning of the second round. We really took him where we thought we were going to take Kamara.
Wow.
And we were planning on taking Kamara at 210, but Marcus Williams fell a little bit closer to us than we had anticipated, so we made that selection, and then we chose to trade back into the early third round to take Kamara, and then Alex Anzalone was a player that played for us before injury, and then Al Muhammad was another player that we drafted who's gotten to play. So that class, along with the free agents, look, the Okafor's injured right now, but Manti Te'o, A.J. Klein, these guys,
oh yeah,
we're all key parts to what we're doing, and unfortunately a number of these guys are injured right now, but the next guy up has done a good job.
We're talking to Sean Payton, head coach of the Saints. They play Minnesota this weekend in the divisional round. The expectations of draft picks, we know how that works. You get a guy in last year, Michael Thomas, in the second round, and wow, the kid has been unreal for 2 years. And then Kamara, one of the many draft picks that have worked out in the third round. But as we said, the expectation to realization. So you look at a guy like Kareem Hunt, a third-round pick for the Chiefs, all of a sudden, right out of the gate, this guy's hitting it. And with Kamara, now early on, when you still had AP on the team, he was taking some carries. So when did the expectation of what we think this guy could do to the realization of, wow, he can really do it, when did that hit for you with Kamara?
Well, look, there's two parts to that. I think when we went to work them out on not their pro day, but, it's pretty common to fly around and have private workouts. And I was there that day, and we had the meetings with the players, and they had 7 or 8 draft players, and Kamara was one of them. And he was in watching film with the quarterback Dobbs, and you could tell right away in the meeting that he was awfully football smart. And that was apparent. That's the one thing I remember leaving that day was his football intelligence. And again, I mentioned this on the onset, but we've made too many mistakes in the prior 3 years where when you look at why didn't it work out, generally it was either football IQ or health. And so that was interesting. He was fun to be around. And then when we worked him out, I kind of put him through a series of different drills that I knew he had good hands, but I wanted to see how strong his hands were. And so, we put him out at receiver. We brought him into the backfield, ran him on a few rail routes, ran him on a few escapes. And all the while, we're kind of talking about football and if it's hot, I want you to do this. And then he'd do it. And boy, everything came very smooth in that workout and easily understood. And there's listen, he had a bright smile. I mean, this is not only a talented kid, but a guy you like being around. And I think someone who his teammates enjoy being around. And I remember just getting on the plane. We were heading to Michigan next, and I remember thinking, man, we have to draft that player. And then it was just a matter of, all right, how are we going to get him? And the other back we kind of targeted later was Tariq Cohen, who's up in Chicago. So the vision early on was more of, that joker type player. And then to his credit, he's handled the carries more than you even got to see in college tape.
Well, look, let me just say kudos to your coaching staff
and
your scouting staff, because those were 2 home runs either way you went there.
And that's all secondary as far as I'm concerned, Coach, because I got to ask you, which do you enjoy better? The fact that you have a song named after you, Hit the Sean Payton by a local musician there, or a beer, the Sean Payton Blonde Ale, released by the local Port Orleans Brewing Company? I mean, those are 2 awesome things. Is there one you prefer over the other?
Well, one I've supported because Zach Streif, our right tackle, and his family and his in-laws are just started really a nice restaurant, microbrewery down uptown in the Garden District, and so I was on top of the Blonde Ale. Now this other thing here, the dance thing, that that all came without any not that it needed permission. It just came kind of as a surprise.
Well, sometimes those are the best things. Yeah. Look, just so you know, you're winning. You got the dance, the song, and the beer. That's the holy triumvirate for a lot of us here. Sean, congratulations. We wish you all the best luck. It's going to be a very tough game in Minnesota. And just because you said what you liked about Def Leppard on the way in, we got a little more music for you on the way out. Little Judas Priest, you got another thing coming from the same genre. All right, Sean, thanks so much. We appreciate it.
We'll see you.
This has been the Best of Golic and Wingo podcast. Make sure to subscribe on the ESPN app, Apple Podcasts, and to listen every weekday morning at 6 Eastern on ESPN Radio, ESPN2, and the ESPN app.
Attention shoppers, clean up on aisle 14. Clean up on aisle 14. Someone dropped a jar of pickles. Kosher pickles.
Beatboxing at a big box store. Surprising. What's not surprising? How much you could save by switching to Geico.
A red minivan has the lights on in the parking lot.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
Geico.